Being an old punk rocker, I'm quite impatient. I'm not going to hold my tongue if I think something needs saying.
Having dead animals put on your gatepost or death threats, what is it that keeps you going?
I don't feel disempowered. Very often it's been David versus Goliath, but that doesn't scare me. What gets me out of bed in the morning is the smell, of an oak woodland when it's just finished raining in the autumn. It's the first hoot of a tawny owl on a cold October evening. That's the seed, the source, the fuel that drives that need to communicate that passion and enthusiasm as rapidly as possible because of the problems it faces.
Chris Packham is a conservationist and broadcaster known for his environmental and animal welfare activism, and he's also a vocal advocate for neurodiversity. You've obviously had this very intricate and deep connection with the natural world in so many forms throughout your life. I was wondering if we could go back a bit, and you could tell me a bit about your kinship with animals as a child, as a teenager, how that happened for you.
I was an avid collector of living animals as a child, so there were always things in jam jars and tanks in my bedroom. And then latterly, they were enclosed in cages in the garden. But when I got to about 12, my father bought me some binoculars, and it transformed the way I, interacted with those creatures, because I realised I could learn a lot more about them when they were living in their habitat rather than my bedroom. And from that point onwards, I became less interested in keeping animals and more interested in watching them out in the wild, basically.
Do you feel like your autism drove you in some ways to make those connections, or even enabled you to form deeper connections with the natural world?
I think I was drawn to it because of my ability to see things in great detail very rapidly and remember them. And I suppose we call it focused interest now, but I'll stick with obsession. I had an obsessional interest in natural history, and it would ricochet from one species or group of species to another. And therefore, if you like, and certainly not, I don't want to be in any way immodest, I would sort of develop a degree of expertise about a very small number of things, but in intense detail, very rapidly. And the greatest joy of my life, as it's been through, broadcasting, is that I get to meet people who know more about any part of that subject than I do. And they're put at my disposal to ask them questions, and they tell me what they know. It's the University of Natural Sciences, and that's been the greatest joy. People very often think, oh, it must have been brilliant to have travelled and seen all of those species that you probably never dared dream you would, flicking through secondhand copies of Nat Geo in 1966. That's true, but then meeting the scientists that know more about them and them telling